Hey Cleveland, this is Anderson Varejão of the Cleveland Cavaliers. You are listening to the Sports Fix.
You are the voice of the Sports Fix. So pick up your phone now and call 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Away we go. Here we go. Off and running. Another day, another dollar. Another edition of the Sports Fix on the air and in the ether. Welcoming you guys to the Sports Fix here. It's noon Eastern time, and I don't know, not for everybody, but for the Eastern time it's noon, and that means we're doing the Sports Fix thing. Welcoming you guys, hopefully here each and every day. Maybe some of you are here for the very first time. Either way, welcome in, and thank you so much for joining us once again to what we like to call Cleveland's freshest and fastest rising alternative Cleveland sports radio, and welcoming you guys to the Sports Fix. Maybe you're listening across the Sports Fix radio network live on TuneIn and TuneIn's radio app worldwide. Perhaps you're listening on Spreaker and Mixler and their digital and mobile apps live as live can be. Or perhaps you're streaming us in real time, baby, right on our home base, thesportsfix.net. The mothership, the home base for all things Cleveland sports. It's got a headline, ticker, news, stories, our replays and archives, our social media widgets right there. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter right there on thesportsfix.net. So bookmark it. Plus, it's a great backup site to enjoy the show if any of the aforementioned sites aren't streaming. Perhaps there's technical problems that day. You can use the website to listen live any day. Voice booms live at noon each and every day right there. Bookmark it, thesportsfix.net. Perhaps you're also one of the thousands around the world enjoying the show 24 hours a day, 7 days a week here on digital delay on such sites as iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, all of the podcast formats, places that you may download, feed, subscribe the show, however you get your fix. Thank you so much for doing it. And as we say each and every day, couldn't do it without you because you are the voice of the Sports Fix. Of course, my voice, the voice that you're hearing here, is the host of the show. I'm Jerry Myers, J-Rocc, the big daddy on the microphone, whole bunch of nicknames, call me what you will, but every day call me excited to do this, happy to be here. You can always call me loaded, chock full of coffee, and you can call me on the phone. Like how I did that? 216-539-7535, the number to call. We want to hear from you. You are the voice of the Sports Fix. 216-539-7535. We've got a couple of guests back-to-back here today, so if you want to get in, first segment would probably be your best bet to get in. 216-539-7535. Can't get in? Facebook, Twitter, you know how we do it on social media. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. You can email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix, or just search Facebook for The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Make sure you like and follow those pages while you're there. Join the nearly 23,000. I think it's over 23,000 now. Whatever it is, the number of followers we have there continues to grow. Be one of them. And always stay connected with the Sports Fix 24/7. Plus, there's all kinds of great listeners like yourself and conversations out there to be had. Facebook and Twitter. Do it up with us there. And you know what? As we get rolling here with the show, a couple of things. Before we dive into today's show, throwback once again to yesterday. I saw Bruce in the chat room. I got dozens and dozens of compliments yesterday from you guys as the day went on, from people yesterday. Ernest Biner, EB21, joining us. Great interview yesterday, and that was all Ernest, man. He made it easy. He said we made it easy on him. He made it easy on me, and that was a lot of fun, though, and definitely one of my favorite interviews that we've brought. We've gotten a chance to speak to so many guys, but that one was definitely, as you can tell, it went nearly an hour and 20 minutes, and trust me, that was not in the game plan when we got rolling. It was just one of those good ones, but a lot of feedback from you guys. Glad you guys appreciated that one as well. If you didn't hear it, make sure you go back and listen to it. If you did and you want somebody else to hear it, go out there and share it. Send it out on your social media, Facebook and Twitter. Just put it out there and tell people to take a listen. It's a great way to perhaps convince somebody that's never listened to the show to take a listen to what we've got going on. Look, I know a lot of you guys, I see the phone lines already ringing here. I know a lot of you guys, we're going to start, trust me, the Browns, the gift that keeps on giving, and I'm saying that in the most sarcastic way possible. We're going to talk some Browns here early on. John McMullen from the Sports Network is going to join me in the next segment. He'll join in on that conversation, but we got to start. Man, Mike Brandenberry's coming up here in a little bit from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Doug Plagens, voice of the Lake Erie Monsters. Got to stall it off, though, man. I cannot just dive directly into this dumpster fire continuing to happen over here in Berea again. Hey, you know what? Cleveland State Vikings. I gotta start good. Gotta start good, and then we'll go down the tortured trail. But Vikings yesterday got a victory as they continue to stay hot here in the Horizon League. Anton Grady had a double-double, 17 points, 13 rebounds, and Grady and Charlie Lee became the 21st and 22nd players in Cleveland State Vikings history to pass 1,000 career points. Vikings got the victory, and they maintain their spot first place in the Horizon League. They beat Youngstown State 73-60 last night. Vikes jump up to 14-10 now on the season. They're 8-2 in the Horizon League. Penguins fell to 10-16, 1-10 in Horizon League play. Charlie Lee hit a three-pointer to become the 21st player to reach that margin. Grady with that double-double, his 16th career double-double, 6th in Horizon League play, and 5th in the last 6 games, did it as well. Not only did Grady pass the 1,000-point mark, but he became the first player, and hey man, there's been some good cats to come through and play Viking basketball. He became the first player in Vikings history last night to reach the 1,000-point mark, along with 600 rebounds, 100 steals, and 100 block shots in a career. So hats off to him. Anton Grady continuing to put his name in the record books there. Of course, this Vikings team, I'm telling you, they're capable of making some noise in March, you guys, as they continue to keep rolling. That victory against Green Bay should have opened up some eyes the other day as well. But keep an eye on them. And Marlon Mason, we were just talking about it yesterday. I didn't think he'd be back. I figured it'd be another game. He played yesterday. Got in a little, I think 16 minutes or so yesterday. 8 points, a couple of rebounds for him. So good to see Mason back out there. Of course, mentioned that he had lost nearly 15 pounds being out by the flu here, a viral infection, more than just the flu the last few days. So hats off to the Vikings for that victory as they continue to push pace here in the Horizon League and stay up on the top of it. They'll wrap up the 3-game homestand they're on this coming Saturday. Wright State will be at the Q. We'll talk some more about that tomorrow. Buckeyes couldn't have made it 2 for 2 last night. I saw some of you guys there in the chat room. Yeah, Mark Loving, and all I've got on this, I have no clue what the deal is going to be with him, but he temporarily lost the privilege of wearing the scarlet and gold. He was suspended for last night's game, and that definitely played a piece in it. There you saw the Buckeyes kind of fall back a bit after we were just talking, Dan Wismar and I, yesterday. And I mean, sometimes we're the curse on you guys. I'm telling you, if you're a player and you hear us talk about you on the show, you may have to worry about what happens last night, because Wismar and I yesterday were just talking about the Buckeyes kind of getting it together. Russell doing his thing, Mark Loving stepping up, and then, of course, you come off the air, and I go, wow. Can we be more dated more quickly than this happening? But anyways, Russell had 20, led the way there, 7 boards, 5 assists for the Bucks. Nobody else even got double digits except Amir Williams. It was a tough night there for the Bucks. Had a shot at the end, but Just an atypical night for them. We talked about it yesterday. Inconsistency is the thing that's going to continue to plague this team. Purdue 60, Ohio State 58. All right, guys, you know what? I am going to dive in a little bit here, and then we're going to get a break, and then I want to get John McMullen in. Let's talk Browns. Yesterday, you guys heard it live. For those of you listening to the show, I was talking to some people last night, and they were talking to me about the show, and so anyways, as I was explaining, I said, so I had this lengthy interview with Ernest Biner, and I said, so I get done with Ernest, it's about an hour and 20 minutes or whatnot, move on to the next segment. Dan Wismar is going to join me. Meanwhile, I'm in the middle of this conversation live, so I really couldn't do a whole lot of lateral checking and seeing in the background what was going on. That Jason La Canfora story was released about the Browns. What was it, about 10 minutes after we went on the air yesterday? So I had no clue about it yet. You know, we wrap things up, we get Dan Wismar on, and he dropped the bomb. As you guys heard, those of you that were listening live yesterday, he's telling me about it, I'm pulling it up and trying to suck the details off as quick as I can while he's filling in the gaps, and so we had a bit of a cursory discussion about it yesterday, but last night I got a chance to dive into this and also at the same time talk to some people that I know and some different things. Let me tell you, while it's easy to say that this is there's a lot of, and I got to agree. I mean, Dan and I, for all transparency, the first thing we say when stuff comes from the sources such as Pro Football Talk and Jason La Canfora and some of those guys, you know where they came from, because their sources are Mike Lombardi and Joe Banner and some people that have axes to grind, and it is in their best interest for the Browns to look as foolish as possible. But don't fool yourself. While yes, that there are some of these stories being painted in the worst light possible, that's not what this whole thing is. There's a lot of smoke where some of this is. I personally know verified some of these things. I told you guys that there were certain parts of that story that we were talking about during the season. And some people say, oh yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, who told you that? Well, I told you. That's all that matters, is I told you what I was being told. And word for word, some of that comes out, especially when you start talking about the business people and getting hands-on. And I'll never forget, I told you guys, I got a text from a buddy of mine who I trust very, very much. And he doesn't tell me a lot, but when he does, I know he's not giving me anything that's not on the up and up. And I'll never forget, with all that stuff about Manziel and Hoyer, the week the change was made, the week before, how I was told it was a unanimous vote. Every coach said Hoyer is better than Manziel at this point. We would be nuts to make the change. And the next week, the change came down from the top. And I remember talking to you guys about that. I said, man, I'm just saying, I was told. You could go pull that episode up in the archives. I think my exact quote was, all I'm going to tell you guys is I was told every coach voted, and it was unanimous that Brian Hoyer remained the quarterback for the Browns, and yet anyways. So, and look, you guys know we can get into the permutations of that argument as far as the performance and all of that, but so I'm just saying, I know for a fact some of those stories are legit. I don't know that they're all legit, but I know for a fact that some of them are. And man, I mean, really, as Dan and I were saying yesterday, I was getting, and I'm serious about this, you guys. Look, there's always dysfunction in Berea and all these stories and all of this stuff. But I literally, as we were on the air yesterday, going through all that and catching me up with the story, I'm feeling a kick in the gut feeling, reading it, because you guys listen to the show every day, you know that last season and in the last 15, 18 months, I truly felt, and look, I'm far from the only one. Across the NFL, there was a consensus that the Browns were turning this thing around and finally, perhaps, had some people as far as Ray Farmer, and trust me, I got some things to ask you guys. I'm curious where that thing should go. What do you guys think with Farmer? But Farmer, and then a head coach that I definitely respected throughout the season for especially the things that we knew were going on behind the scenes. Layer of respect for what he dealt with to even keep the thing together as much as it did until it just totally disintegrated at the end. But, you know, I mean, even hardcore, I don't like the Browns. My man Bruce is a perfect example there. But even hardcore, I don't like the Browns guys reached a point halfway through last season or so where they said, man, all right, maybe they're not a Super Bowl team, but maybe, just maybe, these guys are starting to, get their stuff together, for lack of a better phrase, and so just from that perspective alone, as you're sitting here seeing that it's not, it was, and that's the worst part. I told a friend of mine last night, I said, I think what's kicking the Browns fans in the stomach the most right now is the fact that they felt like perhaps things were starting to turn around a little bit, and perhaps things were really starting to turn that corner, and then bam, you find out that perhaps that's not it at all. And I go back to looking at, and maybe this is what you get when you do things the way the Browns did them last season. Browns fans are having the hardest time wrapping their head about why this franchise did the things they did while they were being successful last year. I mean, do you know how many Browns fans hit me up every day and go, man, do you know what made me throw my hands up this year? The fact that we were winning and that they couldn't just be happy with it and see what happens. I mean, I think that's what gets people the most. It's easy to joke and throw cliches, grass is greener, all those things. True, yeah, but they're all adages that, it's cool to add a spin, and it sounds like good copy in a newspaper story or on a radio story like we're doing here. But, man, that feeling pervades with a lot of fans everywhere is, what was wrong with this picture? What was wrong with it while it was happening? And I tell you guys, my thought, bridge quarterback. To everybody else, bridge quarterback means a couple of seasons. To Jimmy Haslam and Alex Shiner, bridge quarterback meant, hey, get us from the draft to training camp, Brian Hoyer, and then please move out of the way. And we're going to get into the details, man. I continue to go back to the recollection of that Atlanta game, and then just imagine in the locker room the cross. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. Complete polar opposites, contrast of a celebration for a last-minute victory. And meanwhile, the two highest people in the organization are privately not happy because it means they're stuck with the quarterback that they don't want for another week because, God forbid, he won another football game when they were ready to move him out of the way. What in the hell is wrong with that picture? This isn't a rant like usual. I know it's easy for somebody to click on the internet and say, hey, listen to me rant and yell and cuss and say all these things about the Browns in a cute way, and it'll get a few thousand hits on YouTube, and people will say, yeah, this guy, he speaks for the fans, and all that. It's easy to do that, but the fans, and look, say what you want about the Browns. What do they deserve? Are there good people, bad people running the organization? The fans of the Browns, just like the fans of the Indians and the Cavaliers or whatever, they do not deserve. This is, again, look at where the Browns are. Again, sitting here nationally. This is a dumpster fire once again going on here. And maybe some people go, oh, that's too harsh. I disagree. I mean, do we need to run down the list of the things that have happened in just the last few weeks since the season ended? Would you like me to? Because I can, but I don't want to depress everybody. Kyle Shanahan brought a 32-point PowerPoint presentation, sat down and said, here's 32 reasons why you should not hold me to 2 of the 3 years left on the contract that I just signed. I mean, seriously. So for Browns fans, I don't even care if you like the Browns or not. I don't care. I'm going to point to my man Bruce here again. He doesn't like them. I don't care if you dislike the Browns, if you dislike the NFL. I don't care what your feelings are about that. Browns fans, like I said, like Indians fans who have to sit there and deal with 10,000 fans showing up to most of their games and wondering what the hell is going on. And Cavs fans who, until LeBron James came back, had to deal with the last few seasons of NBA rebuilding and all the greatness that comes with that. And the Browns fans who had their franchise taken from them so that 13 other franchises could get brand new stadiums built so then they could be ramrodded with this whatever ramshackle straw house of a franchise that they were given back in 1999, given 8 months and a couple of weeks to put the entire thing together from scratch, and it's been all downhill since, but they've had several chances to get it right and still haven't gotten it right. But I go back to what Dan Wismar and I said at the end of our conversation yesterday. This I don't understand how to fix, because when the problem is at the very top, how do you fix that? Because you can continue to replace everybody else. This isn't me standing up here asking for people to be replaced, although let me jump right there and ask you about Ray Farmer. Because as much as I want these guys to sit tight for a couple of years and not have more transition at the top of this thing, brother, this thing is set up for the decks to be cleared again within 12 months from us having this conversation. And I've got to ask you, and maybe we'll take a break with this and pick it up on the backside of the break here with my man John McMullen. But let me ask you this. Where do you go with Ray Farmer? If Ray Farmer ends up suspended and the Browns lose a draft pick here and all the things that are being talked about and the organization is fined, how, general manager, how do you survive blowing both of your first round picks, having one of them in rehab, and I get it, you can't really hold him responsible for Josh Gordon, and I won't do that because he inherited that problem, and that wasn't something that Ray Farmer went out and got. But point is, look at the things that have happened since in this offseason alone. You know, you're one of your draft picks, both of your first round picks washed out. One of your big quarterback first round picks is in rehab right now, which I don't care. I'm not making jokes. I'm not making light. That's the headline. Quarterback in rehab of the Browns. Kyle Shanahan brought his friggin' 401k presentation here to get himself out of that contract. You had to fire the quarterback coach. The wide receiver coach is gone. The ticket prices go. That's the best part. In the middle of all this, the ticket prices go up. You hired a first-year offensive coordinator. You've got a quarterback coach who's never coached at any level in the NFL. You've got all of these things going on. You lose Josh Gordon for another season. Then, potentially, you get suspended and the team loses a draft pick. I don't personally understand how Ray Farmer's job is not in jeopardy at that point. And I didn't want it. Listen, I appreciate a guy who can go out and find talent in the middle rounds of the draft. I appreciate a guy who can go out and find undrafted free agents. He does have an eye for finding diamonds in the rough. He also had a bit of a trouble hitting the easy. You know, sometimes you can't hit him off a tee, but then the same guy can hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And you're like, how is that possible? But he can't hit the one that's served up like a softball right in front of him. So, you know, think about that. Where do you go? How in the world? But you know what? I could follow that up by saying I watched a general manager go 0-16 and survive. If Matt Millen could survive all of those years in Detroit, being perhaps the worst general manager in the history of sports, he's going to be right up there in that list for sure, is Matt Millen. If he could do that and he could survive that, then maybe Ray Farmer can survive this, especially if he's taking the bullets for Jimmy Haslam like a lot of people seem to believe that he's doing. But, you know, I got to tell you too, you don't slough off this texting thing either, because in NFL circles, nobody is comfortable with the idea of somebody texting and second-guessing the offensive coordinator during the game. Why is Brian Hoyer playing? Why isn't Johnny Manziel playing? Why is this wide receiver package in? Why is this running back in and not that running back? Why did you call this play? Tell you what, Kyle Shanahan's a more patient guy than me, because I may not have made it through the season, to be totally honest with you. About the second time one of those came through, we may have had to have our little coming to Jesus meeting myself, and I may have had to put my PowerPoint presentation right then and there before the season was over. How could you be that way? Like, that would be like, you know, a radio, like this show. Like, I mean, obviously I am the producer, but if I wasn't the producer, that would be like me sitting here with my headphones on, and every 30 seconds I've got the producer telling me what to say next, and I'm trying to figure out I'm listening in one ear and trying to talk. It would be the worst sounding show ever, and it wouldn't be genuine. It wouldn't be me. I would just be repeating what somebody else told you. It would be a whole cycle of garbage. But anyways, that's what that would be like. I mean, I wouldn't appreciate that at all. I can tell you that after one episode of that, we would go have a production meeting, and we would very quickly decide to go either further with this relationship, or we're going in a completely different direction, one way or the other. Man, wow, we're still rolling here, you guys. I know. All right, I can take a call here for a couple of seconds, and then I've got to keep it moving. I want to get your thoughts on this, and we're going to get John McMullen in on the conversation here. Let's go to the phone as we take it to the break. I got a couple of minutes here. Caller, where are you at on this thing? And I'm taking this call live, so hopefully they wanted to talk Browns. But after all of that, it would be crazy if they go, hey, I want to talk about the Cavs. But caller, you're up on the Sports Fix. What's happening?
J-Rocc Daddy.
Hey, LGZ.
Let me tell you something, J-Rocc Daddy. Everybody was excited when Jimmy Haslam III bought the Cleveland Browns because this was a minority owner coming in from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they figured this is a guy that knew how to build a winning franchise from watching what the Rooneys do out there and have become so successful for years. Don't, and I repeat, don't think that Ray Farmer isn't becoming the fall guy for Jimmy Haslam III. Don't think Haslam doesn't use people as disposable objects. I remind everybody, go back and look at the top 9 high-level employees that used to be employed by Pilot Flying J, how Jimmy Haslam sat back and claimed he knew nothing about the millions and millions of dollars extra in his checking account when these guys all had to do plea bargains and go to prison or get jail time or do whatever they had to do to take the rap for Jimmy Haslam III in the rebate scam that went on at Pilot Flying J. Don't forget, draft night 2014 is when Jimmy Haslam told ESPN the homeless guy told him to draft Johnny Manziel. Now you're telling me 9 months later that Ray Farmer is the guy that wanted to draft Johnny Manziel. I didn't swallow that pill then, J-Rocc Daddy. I don't swallow that pill now. I don't believe Ray Farmer is the guy that
LG,
said, I want to draft Johnny Manziel.
In the article that we're referencing here, I mean, literally on the board, up in the war room for Ray Farmer, on his quarterback board, he had Teddy Bridgewater, then Derek Carr. Number 3 was Johnny Manziel, and that was on hidden quarterback board in the war room. So that's how Ray Farmer had the quarterbacks broken down according to the reports. I'm with you. I mean, we talked about it during the season. But here's the thing.
I don't want to play the race card here. I don't want to play the race card here, J-Rocc Daddy. But Ray Farmer's a black American man, and having a black man as a GM in the NFL isn't something that gets handed out lightly. Ozzie Newsome's one of the most successful black men in the history of being a general manager of the NFL. Ray Farmer is simply trying to keep his job. He's being ordered probably behind the scenes what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Haslam uses people like you and I use toilet paper, J-Rocc Daddy.
I'll tell you what. Yesterday, reading through this article, and when Dan and I were talking on the air, he brought up the one line that sticks out, which is Jimmy Haslam is Jerry Jones without the football knowledge, which is just a scary statement. One that gets me, and this is what I'm hearing more and more and more. You guys know, as a matter of fact, I think just the other day on the show, I was talking about my belief, and if I ran a business, just in general, not to have everybody around you that agrees with you. You always want to have 1 or 2 people that are going to give you a different opinion just to keep you open-minded. But in that article, that one line that just smacks you in the face of reality is Jimmy Haslam does not tolerate disloyalty, and Jimmy Haslam views a different opinion from him as disloyalty. So whereas some people want to have somebody in the group that says, hey, maybe you should go left when everybody else is saying go right. When you do that with him, he views that as a sign of disloyalty, and he cuts that off right away. It's part of that. You know how the Browns talk about groupthink, and we all have to be on the same page, and we all have to have the same mentality. While I do agree that you all have to be heading in the same direction, groupthink is how you run a business out into the ground. I mean, groupthink is disaster for anything. It means a circle full of people telling each other, yeah, you're great. Yeah, you're great. Yeah, you're great. Meanwhile, we all suck. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, J-Rocc Daddy. And a successful owner in any successful business surrounds himself with people with the knowledge, and he lets those people run the organization. If Jimmy Haslam is another Jerry Jones without the football knowledge, and then you throw into the mix what you just said about he doesn't think a disagreement with him is being loyal, he is going to run this Browns and anybody that tries to run a successful football team into the ground. And we're seeing it happen, man. We saw it after Chazinski, believe it or not. After one season of being an NFL football coach, gets canned. There you have it, folks. This is the kind of owner that Mr. Jimmy Haslam is. And I go back, J-Rocc, I go back. He's a hands-on owner of the Pilot Flying J, one of the biggest, largest truck stop firms in the entire country. And he swears to God on a stack of Bibles that he knew nothing. And he said nothing. I knew nothing about this. J-Rocc, Daddy, if you opened your checking account statement and there was millions of dollars of extra income in there, wouldn't you be a bit curious where that came from?
Hell no, man. I'm taking the money and running, my friend. I'm not asking where that money came from, man. I'm going, hey, what do you know? I got an extra couple of million today, man. Hey, hot dog, man. No.
Well, you know what we're stuck with now, J-Rocc? We're stuck with a guy that could have been and should have been a good general manager. I really believe that Haslam is making Ray Farmer the fall guy. So before everybody starts thinking that Ray Farmer is inadequate at doing his job, just look at the draft board you just mentioned. If you remember before the draft, a picture of that draft board actually got out and escaped through the media when the door was left open, and they took a picture of that.
But LG,
and I got to tell you something. That makes sense. They spent $100,000 to study Bridgewater, man.
LG. But I got to follow up what you just said, and we got to wrap it with this, is I don't blame Ray Farmer if he's making himself a yes man for Jimmy Haslam, because if you are simply trying to keep your job, I get it. That's a lot of money. That's a job. I get it. I would be trying to keep my job too. But at some point, you're the fall guy for this thing. Like, to me, if you allow yourself to be a yes man, then you go out with the next regime change, because you know what's happening. You know better, and that's what you just said. The two don't go together, because I believe Ray Farmer knows better. I can tell by some of the guys that he's brought in for this team. Ray Farmer, you're right. He definitely could have been a good general manager. He still could be a decent general manager for this team, perhaps better than that. But if he is going to treat his job as if I have to do it this way to keep Jimmy happy, there's 32 other ones. I'm just saying, just like Shanahan said, you know what? I can go do this job somewhere else. I mean, don't you say that if you're Ray Farmer? So if you don't, then you're choosing to be a yes man. And at that point, you're no good to our organization either, because you're just going to tell the owner what he wants to hear to try to keep your job. So in that regard, I can't feel sorry for Ray Farmer if that's the case, because you're choosing to protect your job instead of do your job. And I know it's easy to say, but at the end of the day, I mean, I guess it depends on what's your definition of your job, because perhaps to Ray Farmer, the definition of his job is to please his boss. And if that's the case, then he's doing a good job.
Well, you know, the sad reality is that he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, J-Rocc. I'm sure he was promised the moon and hasn't been delivered anything. And
I agree.
And I tell you, it all goes back to him coming out at the season's end saying it was his idea to draft Johnny Manziel. Anybody that believes that, hook, line,
he's fallen on his sword.
I got some swampland in Florida.
But here's the scary thing, you guys, and I'm just going to put this out here, and LG, I got to go on this one, but here's the scary thing. I don't believe that the Browns internally believe that they have as much of a quarterback issue as people say. I'm looking at all of the tea leaves here, and just like you said, just like they could stand there at the end of the season and tell you things that they knew weren't true, but they'll tell them to you to your face. I personally believe that Jimmy Haslam, Alex Shiner, and Ray Farmer are going to buff up Johnny Football. They're going to buff up his public image, and they're going to prop him out there and try to make him the quarterback of this team next season. They're going to give him a fresh coat of paint. They're going to do all the PR work. They're going to feed the media with all of these behind-the-scenes stories about the change, Johnny Manziel. Come July, We're going to hear stories about the work ethic, and he works like a demon now, and he's the hardest working guy that the Browns have ever seen. And you watch, come August, Johnny Manziel will find a way to be back in the discussion for the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, not based on anything because he jumped into the discussion. I truly believe that the Browns are full steam ahead on getting some more mileage out of the good ship Johnny Football.
J-Rocc, I just leave you with this one last question. I want a truthful answer from you. You ready for the question?
Yeah.
If you put lipstick on a pig, what do you have underneath?
Here we go. I hear you, man. I hear you, brother. I hear you. LG, I got to hit it. Thank you very much.
Still have a pig, J-Rocc, Daddy.
I know.
You can put all the lipstick on Johnny Manziel you want.
I know.
The talent speaks for itself. The man is not going to be a changed person. I heard your show the other day how you're hoping as a person that this helps him tremendously. I hope so too. But you know what? In the NFL, you either can do it or you can't do it. And what we saw was a failed attempt at somebody trying to do what they simply can't do. Have the rest of your good show. Great show yesterday, by the way. Piner was one fantastic guest. We need more guys like him involved with the Cleveland Browns. Then we possibly have a winning sensation on the field. I'll talk to you, J-Rocc, Daddy.
I agree. Thanks, LG, my man. Good call. We'll take some more of your calls later. Let's get John McMullen in on this conversation. We've got Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com coming up in a little bit as well. Doug Plagens, the voice of the Monsters. We keep up this conversation other side of the break with John McMullen from the Sports Network coming up next here on The Fix.
A public service announcement from the Sports Fix. We here at the Sports Fix and our affiliates would like to apologize for any disturbing verbal actions, but remember, it's better having them trapped in a box than loose on the streets. Public service announcement from the Sports Fix. The Sports Fix, the sports show that cares.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Hey, Sports Fix fans, I'm Fred McLeod, TV voice of the Cavaliers. When I'm not busy taking elbows from my buddy Austin Carr, I'm tuning in to see what the guys are saying. Come on, Cavs!
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and
pour me out. This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you guys here as we roll on with the first hour of the show. Don't forget, coming up here in just a little bit, hour 2, we've got Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com, and we've got Doug Plagens of the Lake Erie Monsters as well, catching us up in hour 2. About to catch up with John McMullen, the Sports Network, here in just a moment. Talk some Browns. So we got a lot to talk about. Pick up right where we left off in that first segment. Thanks to Larry for the call. The rest of you guys that tried to get through, I'll promise I'll get you guys through here a little bit later on in the show. If you didn't get through, if you want to tell us what you think, and a lot of you do, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. And no matter how much Axl Rose says it, no, they're not just out to get the Browns, at least. There's definitely, I told you guys, the smoke that I know of to some of these fires. Again, sure, some of this is colored from a perspective of what people want you to hear, but man, a lot of it, and that's what's kicking so many Browns fans in the gut today, is they felt like I felt yesterday when we were talking about it, where even when you know the things that are going on, you feel that kick in the gut because you thought maybe, just maybe, things were, even in spite of itself, starting to turn around. And then you see that, no. And matter of fact, it could be even more dysfunctional than before. Because as I say, when the dysfunction's at the very top, you can't fix it. Nobody's going to fire me from the Sports Fix. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to fire me. Like, any other changes can be made. But I'm still going to be here until I decide somebody else can do my job better. So when the top guy is the problem, and if that's the deal, that's a hell of a lot harder to fix. Ask the Cowboys fans. Let's pick up there and talk to my man John McMullen from the Sports Network right there. John, how you doing this afternoon?
Well, hoping I'm not the problem because, I'm doing well, but the Cleveland Browns aren't.
No, absolutely not, man. I mean, obviously, and you were at the the game this week. I guess before we even get into the Browns, man, Super Bowl quickly. What were your thoughts there?
A lot like other people questioning, obviously, the play calling. I didn't hammer on Pete Carroll as much as others because I think he was simply covering for the offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, and the quarterback, obviously, Russell Wilson. And, I think that's what leaders do. I think it was a mistake, and the play call was a mistake, and that was compounded by the quarterback who, just because it's a bad play call doesn't mean you have to throw an interception. And lost in all of that is the fact that the third part of it was a tremendous, tremendous play by Malcolm Butler. So I think a lot of people kind of overlook that aspect of it because, you're talking about a third-string cornerback who wasn't even supposed to play, only in the game because Kyle Arrington was having such a bad day, and all of a sudden he looks like Deion Sanders jumping a slant route at the goal line. So he deserves a ton of credit for winning that game for the Patriots.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm with you on the I saw the somebody put a meme on one of our Facebook pages yesterday. I've seen a lot of them, but this one took the old, if you guys remember, it's the old Tecmo Bowl screen where you had 8 plays on the screen and it would tell you who was running. Every one of them said Lynch, and it was the play up the middle, and it was pretty funny. But anyways, I hear you on that, but I say, had that pass not been intercepted by a fantastic defensive play, people are going, man, genius play call there, man. Everybody was looking one way, and they went the other way. But would you agree, one of the better Super Bowl games as far as a game? What were your thoughts on the game itself?
Oh, obviously. I mean, we've had so many over the years that are just blowouts, including last year. But, this is certainly one of the best, if not the best. Obviously, when you're at the goal line with 20 seconds away, I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. It's, such a range of emotion. You've probably seen all the clips from, Pete Carroll on the one sideline to Tom Brady on the other. You think you're on the verge of winning, and a second later you're just despondent. And on the other hand, you think you're on the verge of blowing the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden you're rejoicing. So for once I got it right in the prediction. I said it was going to be a 50-50 game and one play was going to change it late, and it certainly ended up being that way.
Speaking of one play, even though it didn't end up being the play, what were your thoughts on the catch there that set up all the drama at the end as you were watching that unfold, that bobble. Hey, wait a minute. It never hit the ground. That was that. Speaking of looks on the faces, I keep talking about the look on Brady's face when they showed it on the sideline as his lips start to part and his eyes get a little wide as he's like, you're kidding me, right? That's going to happen.
Well, they've seen it so many times. I mean, if it wasn't for the David Tyree catch and the Mario Manningham catch, and now, I mean, the Patriots, that could have been their 6th Super Bowl title.
Yep.
I think a lot of people forget just the fact that, people always remember the helmet catch, but the Manningham catch, if people remember that one, how outrageous. And this one was sort of like Antonio Freeman on Monday Night Football against the Vikings, if you remember that catch. Very similar to that one. And, yeah, it looked like it was going to cost the Patriots the game. And, that's one of the things I kind of laugh about is people are saying, did this stamp the legacy for Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? And, their legacies have already been stamped. The fact that they're in this game for the 6th time and the fact that even when they lose, it's, it comes down to a David Tyree catch or, an outrageous play. It just speaks to the consistency of that organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I said it already. I mean, obviously, drafts, free agency, all of that's going to change the shape in the offseason of the league, but mark it down now. These two teams will be in that discussion at the end of next season, knocking at the door of coming back and doing it again, So it was a great game. If you're, a great way for the defending champions to lose. I know not if you lost. I know there's some people going, yeah, well, great for you because you watched it, but a good game, obviously on all sides. Hey, you've been to, I don't know how many you've been to, but the sheer spectacle, all of that being there, how did this year's measure up there with other Super Bowls?
It was pretty, I thought the halftime show was, not my cup of tea, but the fans there loved it. And it was really, as far as the pageantry goes, it was one of the better ones, and certainly in recent years. And, it's becoming a bigger and bigger event than anyone thought possibly, and obviously it set a new U.S. television record, 114 million viewers. And that actually spiked for the halftime show. It was even higher. I think it was 121 million at the end of the game. So, we keep talking, the one reason Roger Goodell still has his job is because the bottom line never takes a hit. We've talked about how bad the season has been off the field. And, even yesterday, I think 3 or 4 NFL players got arrested yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday. Yep.
But, hey, fans love it, and they're not turning it off.
Yeah, you and I can get into some of that later on in this, but I want to just segue off into the Super Bowl a little bit because I just spent the previous segment hitting it hard with all of this, the latest garbage that's going on and all of that. And yesterday we were on the air, and I actually interviewed. I had Ernest Biner on the show, and what a great human being he is, man. And we had a pretty lengthy interview. So the Jason Lockenfor article hit while I was on the air doing the interview live. So when my next guy came on, he goes, hey, I don't think you've seen this yet. And he started, and so I'm looking, and then after we went off the air, just really soaking in, and then getting a chance to bounce things off of people that I talked to over there, and just amazing. We know when these sources, where they have their sources. Like, I know anything that comes from Pro Football Talk and Jason Lockenfor, some of these guys, their sources begin at the name Mike Lombardi and Joe Banner, their best interest for the Browns to come off in a bad light. But as I started the show by telling people, personally, I can verify several of these things that are unverified yet that have been reported. So I know that some of them are true for a fact, regardless if they're all true. So you can't just sit here and go, well, they're just trying to, rail against Cleveland here with all this BS and all of that. And the fact that the Browns keep quiet. They don't do. I mean, that's all very telling stuff here going on. But I mean, what is your reaction? We talk all the week, so you're closer to Cleveland probably than a lot of the national people because of our conversations. I mean, not all of this is a surprise, but thing laid out nationally yesterday and saw things that perhaps we hadn't even. Your thoughts on the sum of what Jason La Canfora said?
Well, it's a mess, and it starts at the top. Talk about it dating back a long time before any of this stuff came out. And, you know, whether you want to pick out little parts of it, and, you know, it was pretty clear. You know, how many times did we talk about it last offseason about what Johnny Manziel was doing? You know, it doesn't. How many times did we talk about Josh Gordon and the fact that, you know, it's probably a good idea, understanding the talent. It's probably a good idea for the Browns to move on simply because they can't count on them moving forward. You know, and how many times do we talk about the coaching carousel and the fact that, you know, and I've said it time and time again, I think with the hand he was dealt, I think Mike Pettin did a pretty good job first year last year, but we talked about it, doesn't have a lot up in the National Football League, and you think about where he came from, and you think about how many people interviewed for the job, you think about the Harbaugh rumors, you think about, it was pretty clear that whether he was the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth choice, whatever number you want to put on it, it was abundantly clear he wasn't the first choice. So, you know, all this comes into a you know, and then the fact you have a first-time GM texting down to, you know, it's a mess. I don't know what are the way to describe it. And you just mentioned Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi, and as a, you know, being from Philadelphia, I have some knowledge of those guys, and we've talked about it in the past. And, you know, say what you want about them, and I've said a lot of bad things about Joe Banner and written a lot of bad things about him. But he's a professional, and he knows how to work in this business. I don't see a lot of professionalism there. I really don't. So I look back at that and say that was a mistake so quickly, and I think it's come to fruition.
As people can say what they want about Mike Lombardi, I know you and I had those discussions about the you know, the personal affect of him here, but when you look back, and I was talking to somebody last night, you should have saw the look on my friend's face as I was catching him up on some of these things and talking to him. I said, man, boy, I can't tomorrow. This is going to be a lot of fun to talk about all of this garbage. But I go, man, it's a real kick in the gut when you go, you know, everybody wanted to run Lombardi and Banner out of town, and I was not a Lombardi fan at all. But when you hear that if they had not lost their job, assuming nothing changes, their intent was to target Teddy Bridgewater and Odell Beckham Jr. And I go, well, imagine how much differently, you know, perhaps last season plays out if you just change those 2 first-round draft picks. And then you see the Gordon thing. I can't 100% nail people for that because I understood a year ago. You and I had that discussion when they had offers to trade Gordon last year. And it was, at that point, there was still hope for, you know, this was, well, what if he does it again and you don't give up on the talent? And so I'm not going to totally excoriate the Browns for giving that up, although now it's easy to go, look, you could have got a second-round pick for Josh Gordon from the 49ers. At least there was an argument a year ago about what decision the Browns should make. But all the rest of that stuff, man, yeah, as it just it continues to come out. And I posed this question before the break when we got you on. I don't even know how you go a different direction, but then again, bad general managers can stay in places all along. And I'm not saying that about Ray Farmer specifically, but how in the world can he have job security in an offseason where all of these things happen, even just the provable ones, losing your offensive coordinator, your rookie your rookie quarterback in the first round is in rehab, your other rookie first-round draft pick washed out, Josh Gordon is suspended, even if that's not your fault. You end up perhaps suspended for the texting incident. You end up costing your organization draft picks perhaps here and a fine. I don't understand how Ray Farmer perhaps survives all that as a rookie first-year general manager.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating moving on. I think that's one of the problems the Browns have had.
I do too, but that's tough.
But, yeah, with their history and the fact that, you could argue that he's made far more mistakes than other people they've moved on from quickly. But again, at some point you have to stop doing that nonsense and
I agree.
And build some continuity. And I certainly think he deserves another chance. We talked pretty much from the day after the draft, I think. I thought it was pretty evident they made some serious mistakes, and more so than Manziel, because, and by the way, I don't believe for 1 second, not 1 second, that they were targeting Odell Beckham Jr. and Teddy Bridgewater. That's easy to say right now. No one rated OBJ above Sammy Watkins. And by the way, I'm not, I think Sammy Watkins is going to be a tremendous player.
I had Beckham
but
fourth.
Anyone saying that, Odell Beckham was rated by most people at anywhere from 15 to 20 in the draft. And the Giants actually reached a little bit to get him. And the Giants actually got some criticism on draft day for reaching for him. He had some size issues. He's not the biggest guy in the world, not the tallest guy, under 6 feet. So that's crap, to be blatantly honest. And Bridgewater, we all know. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that I said Bridgewater should have been the number 1 overall pick in my first mock draft, which you can go see in my archive. And he should have been the number 1 overall pick the entire way. So, I don't believe any of that, because he fell throughout the NFL. And even the Vikings, who ended up getting him and sort of lucked into it, they were trying to trade up to the same spot as the Cleveland Browns to take, guess who? Johnny Manziel. And the Browns gave a better offer. Otherwise, he would have been in Minnesota. So for the Vikings to get all the credit for Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to reap the rewards, but that wasn't their plan. Their plan was to take the guy in rehab. And by the way, it wouldn't have worked in Minneapolis either. So it's not like it's not the fact that he's in Cleveland, it's the fact that he's an immature kid. So a lot of that is just people, using hindsight, and it's fun to talk about. But if Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi are there, and as I said, I just said a couple minutes ago, I think they would be better for that organization than for what is there now. But by no means would Cleveland now have Teddy Bridgewater and Odell Beckham Jr. if those two were still in place.
I could buy Bridgewater, because they also commissioned the survey that then the Browns quickly tossed away that had Bridgewater rated at the highest there. Remember, they spent 6 figures on that just to go, oh, cool. Well, we don't like what it says, so we're going to throw it away and not listen to it. But I hear you on Beckham, because I had him at 4th or 5th easily. Of when we're talking pre-draft, not looking in hindsight. I loved Evans. Obviously, we talked a ton about Sammy Watkins. I like Benjamin. There's guys that obviously were above that, and I'm with you on that. But
there's no question. Watkins was way above him on everybody's board, and so was Mike Evans. And then there were arguments from that point. A lot of people had him rated as the third best receiver and better than Benjamin.
And I didn't think
that was in the range of 15 to 20, not at number 4, not even at number 8, where they got Gilbert. I think no way was anybody taking OBJ at those slots.
But taking that out of it, and again, that was just one point there. But I mean, look, again, too, some of the things are definitely said with a slant because you want it to come across, But, we talked all season long about the issues around the quarterback thing. And I point to, and I mention this because so many Browns fans, basically since it happened, but really after the last couple of games of the season, their biggest thing was, why why did the Browns go messing around with everything when for once we were having a relatively decent season compared to where things had been? I think that's the part that gets most fans the most, is they saw it as guys messing with. It's one thing if things are going bad and you're trying to fix problems, and okay, at least then we have a bad team. But I think a lot of fans saw it like, especially with the Hoyer thing, so many people tie in the hometown thing to that. I don't think that's as big of it as people make out of it. It's the fact that for once somebody was actually winning some games and they couldn't get out of their own way quick enough to move the guy out of the way. And now when people are hearing about the realities behind the scenes, they're like, wait a minute, first off, this was a rigged game from the beginning. And I look at that story about the Atlanta game and how in the midst of the majority of the team, hey, just being happy that they're 7-4, which is, we look back, that was the high point of the season. And there, there's people at the top upset because it means another week before they can make a quarterback change. And that thought process is just total opposites of each other. And I'm like, that's the true, if that's where the mindsets are battling each other, that's the definition of dysfunction.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues, you talk about when you see regime changes, and, we constantly talk about it. I know the people in Atlanta are surprised that Dan Quinn got final say on the 53-man roster. That's why that stuff is so important, because, I said it time and time again, the best case scenario is you have, in my opinion, a head coach should always have the final say on the 53-man roster. That doesn't mean he should be doing the scouting. He should be doing the legwork. Really not possible. And once you give them, those are the guys who have to make the decision on team, but who plays and everything like that on Sunday. That coach also has to have tremendous personnel people, whatever manager, executive, doesn't matter what the title is. There's got to be lines, and they have to respect each other, and they have to work together. And that's when you see great organizations. When you have a GM, and as I always say, and this is not a knock at Ray Farmer, because this is every GM. Their job depends on their draft choices succeeding. So, of course, he wants Johnny Manziel to succeed. It looks bad on him if he doesn't. So to give somebody the power, or if someone has the power to be texting down and talk about coaching decisions during game, that to me is the biggest sign of dysfunction. Yeah. This group is certainly not responsible for Josh Gordon. That's how many regimes ago is that now? The fact that he can't look in the mirror and figure out he has a problem, they're paying for the sins of other people when it comes to Josh Gordon. Obviously, Johnny Manziel's on their watch, and there were plenty of red flags, and they deserve criticism for what's going on with him. There's no question about that. But the fact, and we talked about this before, as I said, the fact that Mike Pettin doesn't have any cachet as an NFL head coach is an issue, because he's getting bullied by the personnel people. So that, to me, of everything that's come out over the past week or 10 days or so, has been the biggest issue, and it's a serious one.
And that'll be the next explanation, is we have to replace Mike Pettin with a coach that's got more experience and he can handle things. And then that'll be the next regime change. And it just goes on and on and on. By the time you and I talk next week, perhaps we'll have some answers to this texting thing once and for all. The league says they're going to move pretty quickly on it. We'll get back into our weekly.
Well, that to me, it's not even an issue. I mean, I don't care about the NFL's investigation into it. That part is meaningless to me. The fact, this is where Jimmy Haslam has to step in and say, look, this is his job. Let him do his job. You do your job. That's where he has to step in and develop clear lines that each side can't step over. And if they're not willing to accept that, you have to find people that are. Whether they broke the NFL rules or, what the punishment's going to be, to me, that's secondary. The bigger issue is in-house. and each side understands their particular job and to stop stepping on the other's toes.
Absolutely. Unacceptable. Man, we got a lot to sort out here. Browns fans got a long winter to come. I don't know who saw their shadow, but there's a whole lot more weeks of winter for the Browns fans here to come. And we'll see, man. We'll see how they emerge from this. You and I will be here to talk about it along the way. John, I appreciate you joining me today. And hopefully there's some better. Hey, at least we'll be getting close to the draft so we talk about some football players. But, man, we'll see where things go here for the Browns. As this offseason has only just begun. As crazy as that sounds, all this stuff, it's only just begun a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and, here comes the combines later this month, then free agencies in March, and then, boom, the draft, and we're off and running again.
Let's do it, man. Offseason has begun. What fun for the Browns fans here and their organization. Let's pick it up next week back in our usual slot and do the football thing, John.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. As always, John McMullen from the Sports Network, and we're going to leave it right there. Take a break, quick break, grab some news. Mike Brandenberry back in 3 minutes with us here on the other side of the break, talking some Indians baseball when we come back here on The Fix.
We here at the Sports Fix want to make all of your dreams come true.
What about my dream?
Edith, I told you I can't build your candy house. It will fall down. The sun will melt the candy. It won't work.
It will if it never rains.
Oh, maybe not all of them. Get your fix on the Sports Fix.
This is head coach Gary Waters at Cleveland State, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. It was called While You Were Sleeping. Julia Roberts, Bill Pullman. Not bad if you like romantic comedies. Well, while most of you were sleeping, Steve Kerr was lighting up the Dallas Mavericks. He poured in 51 points last night in Oakland in Golden State's 128-114 win.
As long as we got defensive stops and kept ourselves in the game, that we have enough talent on this team to turn the tide. So for us to come back off a back-to-back against a team that is down 22 says a lot about who we are and what our mission is this year.
The win means the Warriors have the best record in the NBA with 8 days left before the All-Star break. Cavaliers are the hottest team in the league. They will try to extend the longest current winning streak in the NBA to 12 tonight when they host the LA Clippers. 7 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN Radio. The prosecutor's office in Cleveland has decided not to pursue charges against Indians pitcher Danny Salazar. He had been the subject of a sexual assault investigation, but he was neither arrested nor charged. He may have been crushed when his team lost the Super Bowl in painful fashion on Sunday, but Seahawks cornerback Richard Sherman is a happy camper today. His girlfriend Ashley Moss gave birth to a baby boy.
Resolution season isn't just about cutting back on snacks. Crunch on almonds instead. Everyone Else Handful helps you defeat hunger with 6 grams of protein and 4 grams of fiber, so you can take on the day, week, even the whole year. Crunch on with California almonds.
Now, back to the sport.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. Here, you rolling on here. Indeed, life is a highway. So is the Sports Fix. We roll it. You ain't got to tell Browns fans life is a highway. Cleveland sports fans in general. Problem is they always hit the potholes in the road. Don't ever get to just enjoy too much of that smooth terrain out there. It's all right, man. We'll keep it smooth for you. We'll keep it positive. My man, Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com joining me here. You guys keep it going. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. I'm J-Rocc. This is Mike Brandenberry. We're going to talk a little Indians here, and I'm sure he's also happy about the result of the Super Bowl the other day. Spring training's around the corner. Let's pick it up there. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Mike, how you doing this Thursday afternoon? Oh, wait. I swear, I dare me to let you talk. There we go. Mike, are you there? I know you're there. I see you. The timer's going, but you're not answering me. Mike Brandenberry, are you with me? All right, well, we'll have to hang up on him, and we'll get him to call right back. Mike, give me a call back. I don't know what happened. Let's just do this real quick. Call me back. There we go. We'll keep rolling with the Sports Fix. There we go. He called back. Let's see if that one works better this time. I knew I had turned him on. I'm like, wait a minute. I hit the button already. Mike Brandenburry?
I believe that's me. Is
That's
this Jerry Myers?
What's happening, my friend? I don't know what happened on that last one, but here you are.
What's going on? I could hear you, but apparently you couldn't hear me, huh?
You know what? That happens
That's
just
probably better radio.
every once in a while that happens where I guess it's just a matter of it catches a glitch because I'm streaming up and down at the same time because I'm obviously feeding the show live and then downloading the Skype to do the phone call. So just every once in a while a call falls in that gap where you can hear me but I can't hear you. We hang up, call back, and get it right back. So there you go. And wish it was that easy for the Browns. Just hang up, call back, and get it right the next time. You know, life would be so much simpler, my friend.
Yeah, they should hang up. I mean, maybe just in general. Just that could maybe be their slogan for 2015. Just hang up. I don't know. I don't have much positive to contribute to the Browns. You might not want to mention them around me.
Well, I don't blame you. What positive can anybody have to say?
Unless you just want to laugh, I guess.
What positive can anybody have to say right now, man? I mean, seriously.
Oh,
and
well, they still have a franchise. I mean, there's some positive. You know, so I guess there have been darker days, but that's about it.
No, I hear you, my man. And that's the thing. End of the day, man, is the fan base. Like I said, Browns, Indians, Cavs. They don't deserve it. You know, you can say anything. They don't deserve mockery, the garbage, the crap. I get struggling franchises and winning and losing, and that's a function of sports, but just being a clown show, that's not deserved, especially by a fan base that you can't get rid of no matter how hard you try, man. I'm telling you, I believe those guys could just come out and go, hey, we don't want you to buy tickets this year, and they'll still sell a bunch of them. You know what I mean?
70,000 would be there. That could be their slogan. Don't come. And 70,000 would be there. Because you just see it, big billboards. Johnny Manziel, Josh Gordon.
Holding up the money sign.
Ray Farmer in the corner, texting down to the sideline. Kyle Shanahan quitting. Put that on a billboard and right underneath it, don't come. Opening day, 70,000.
Oh man.
And that's the thing, Jerry. I mean, not to get too far off track, but you know, I tell people being a fan, but quit supporting it. You know, watch it at home. Watch it in a bar or a restaurant. But you know, supposedly, and I haven't looked up the numbers because I don't care that much, but you know, the Browns made more money this year than any year since their return in '99. If that's the case, you know, unfortunately, I would blame most of the fans for that. Stop buying tickets. Stop buying Johnny Manziel jerseys or whoever is this year's number one draft pick. You know, fans, all kidding aside, should, you know, instead of the joking "don't come" billboard, you know, fans should be buying billboards saying, you know, show me something. I mean, that should be the fans' you know, slogan is show me something, because until they show something, why anyone would contribute $1 to that organization, I don't know. And you can be a fan without putting your hard-earned money on the line.
Absolutely. I agree with you, man. And what you just said, that's what they hold the tribe to. Hey, do something.
Sure.
Show me something.
Until you hit them in the pocketbook, what's the urgency? I mean, if they're making money hand over fist and they're not winning, what's the urgency? There's no rush.
When the Indians went out and spent all that money a couple of off seasons ago, what did they say was the reason why? Because we reached a 0 dark 30 moment. We reached that point where we realized that it may fall off the deep cliff here if we don't do something, because they were at a point of apathy where it could go even worse than it already did, and they had the money to spend. Whatever, they knew all the circumstances, but it took things bottoming out business-wise for them to go, okay, we have to do something before we do even more damage to this. And same thing here. Part of me wants to say that perhaps the Browns, and I got to tell you, I think that they're in a dangerous territory right now where they could. It's never going to be a big, huge, dramatic drop, but I think they're reaching a point where they could cause that disconnect. Remember, looking back to when they had that disconnect before that allowed the team to be moved by Modell. It was around between 92, 93 as they started to cut the veteran players, and then Belichick ran them out of town, and Kozar, and then the fan base just said, you know what? Screw you guys, man. We're going home. Well, like Cartman would say, man, screw you guys. We're going home. We'll go watch the Indians. They're about to win, you know? And they turned their attention to something else. And for a while, the Cleveland fans haven't had anything else worth turning their attention to in the last few years. So Indians just now going. I know you say you can't run the Browns fans off, but I say right before Jimmy Haslam bought the team, they had been trending downward for seasons in a row, and they had lost a good 15% of their season ticket base from 99 until the time Haslam bought the team. Haslam breathed new life into it because people said, hey, big, rich Jerry Jones guy is going to come in here and rebuild our franchise. I think that if he has, and he has already given all that goodwill back, they're at a point here with some of this stuff where people may throw their hands up, and you will reach that point where they do finally damage some of that unconditional fan support. I truly feel that they're getting close to that. I honestly do.
You just took the words out of my mouth, Jerry, because I think you're dead on 100% right in that before Jimmy Haslam bought the team, they were quickly closing in on that tipping point. And I think, when Mike Holmgren was, going 5-11 and telling people don't ask him for playoff tickets, and Pat Sherman, you know what's so funny, and not funny, but when you make jokes about things like that and you bring those up, those prior things up, and we laugh now, they seem so absurd and ridiculous. I mean, can you imagine a president of an organization that was 5-11 chastising the media and telling them, don't come calling me for playoff tickets? I was there that day. Just how absurd that is. And we've topped it so many times since then. I mean, it's like, in a vacuum, you look at that one thing and you're like, that is ridiculous. And then you're like, well, it is ridiculous, but we've also had a GM email fans and say, F you, go root for Buffalo.
I know.
That sounds totally bizarre. Hey, let's go off our draft board on draft night and take Johnny Manziel. Let's have a meddling owner, according to Jason Lockenfur. We have half the front office shows up for film review at 6 a.m. Every time you think you've heard the craziest thing, it's like, wait 5 minutes and you get another one. But I think you're right in that I think when Haslam bought the team and right around the time that Holmgren did tell people don't call him for playoff tickets, they were closing in on a tipping point of really losing some fans. And I think a lot of people, if you've waited 100 years, what's 101? And I think that's the way a lot of people felt when Haslam bought the team. And obviously the guy deserved his opportunity and his just due, but the honeymoon is long over for Jimmy Haslam, and he makes Randy Lerner look like a pretty good owner, I would say, at this point right now. And that in itself, add that to the list of bizarre things you thought no one would ever say in your lifetime. But, he makes Randy Lerner look like a pretty good owner because Randy was at least smart enough to know to stay out of the way.
That's it. The way I described it last night was Randy Lerner hired a bunch of clowns to run his circus and didn't realize that he hired a bunch of clowns or didn't care. The difference is Jimmy Haslam is one of the clowns in the circus, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the tipping point is coming again and coming quicker. And, I don't know how. Certainly, we say this about the Indians all the time, but, the season doesn't start today. But certainly if it did for the Browns, I mean, I would think you're looking at, a situation where, maybe they are one of the worst teams in the NFL in 2015. And they've got a lot of work. They've got a lot of work to do to dig their way out of being, a 3-13 team in 2015 right now.
And with the, say what you want, the Indians will at least be competitive. The Cavaliers, more than competitive here. I mean, that stuff plays at work in the marketplace as well. It's never been something the Browns have had to worry about, but I'm telling you, it's coming. More than people think, Jerry's exaggerating. No, watch. People cannot wrap their heads around. The Hoyer thing drives Browns fans crazy. Not because he was Joe Montana, because they couldn't understand not waiting until the end of the season and then saying, hey, all right, maybe we need to find something better. They're going, you have given us garbage all these years, and you're going to sit here and mess with a halfway decent season? Like, that's when they said, wait a minute. This is more than just bad football people. This is bad business people, bad football people. It's ridiculous, man. But anyways, man, as Indians fans, you can totally appreciate when the fan base sits there on one side and goes, well, you just prove yourself to us and we'll buy some tickets. And on the other side, it's, hey, let us buy some tickets before we even know what you're going to do to make things better, man. But whatever. As I said, that tipping point is definitely coming. I know we've only got a couple of minutes, man. Indians, next week, spring training, it's coming. We're here, but never good news. Obviously, during the news break before you came on, talked a bit about that Salazar situation here not being charged. However, regardless, you never want situations like this looming right before you head into spring training and all that. And regardless of whatever the legal ramifications are, there's going to be ramifications on this kid mentally, I believe, throughout this season, because there's family issues involved. There's other things in play besides who gets charged with what legally. This could carry on and linger on for Danny Salazar into this season.
Yeah, I think Cleveland police said yesterday that no charges would be filed, yes. But I agree with you. This is certainly, something that's going to be an issue, something that he's probably going to have to answer questions about in spring training. And, all kidding aside, I would never pretend to be holier than thou and be the guy who's never made a mistake. With that said, I've never been strip club guy, and I don't. I guess either. Without needing any of your callers to explain it to me, I guess I don't get it. But to me, I always think it's a foolish waste of money. But no matter where you come out on strip clubs, I suppose. I guess I look at it, a whole lot of bad things can happen there versus I guess what you perceive to be the good things. So there's a lot of ways for things to go sideways and to bad things to happen when you're in that element. So I would say one bad decision for sure, and without having been there or accusing anyone of anything, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably some other bad decisions were made that day too. And like you said, it's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact for sure. And in some ways, I think it's a catch-22 situation where, we talk about, what organizations should and shouldn't be doing for their players and keeping track of them. And, in the same regard, these are grown men and these are adults and they got to be responsible for their own actions and their decisions. I don't think, it's the Indians' responsibility to keep 24-hour surveillance on their guys, but I know the organization does their best from top to bottom to preach making wise decisions. And I mean, at minimum, I would say, Danny Salazar is guilty of some bad judgment.
Absolutely, and again, it'll have ramifications, but this is why when we say you never have too much pitching and it's easy to look at that rotation now and say, hey, look at what may happen. Here, nobody saw something like that. These things just happen, and this is just the first of whatever may happen as this team goes forward here. But it just shows you how quickly things can pop up, things can change, etc., and so forth. Man, I know you're very up against it here with us today. I can't wait to get you back on here next week and dive into some spring training conversations. I mean, we're there now. The truck's packing up tomorrow, 9 a.m. That bad boy's heading down to Goodyear, and man, it is officially that time, man. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about. Not just Indians. We haven't even gotten into the pitch clock thing. I saw you guys did an article on didthetryWinLastNight.com, man. That's an interesting conversation I want to have with you as well.
Oh, I'm ready to go. It's funny that you say that. I'm kind of out of town. I'm in Columbus for a couple days on official business for my paying job, and so my schedule's a little off what it normally is when we talk. But along with that, it kind of allows me a little bit of time to look into some things and kind of start to think about some more things that we're doing on the site and get ready for the season. And it's funny because this morning I was making notes for spring training coverage, and I think some of my ideas and some of my views and opinions on the 2015 Indians, I think, remain liquid and kind of ever changing and flowing. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, that's for sure.
Absolutely, man. Do what you got to do, and let's do this next week. Let's have our first a real good spring trainings. Get ready to start conversation here and start warming things up heading into some spring training.
Sounds good, my man.
All right, Mike, thanks for being here. As always, Mike Brandenburry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com talking Browns fan base with us and a tiny bit about the Indians. You got to love how that works out, Mike.
Oh yeah, there's nothing I love more than talking about the Cleveland Browns. It's like talking about the Titanic, Amelia Earhart, any other kind of tragedy that you may think of. Add the Cleveland Browns to the list.
Mike, thanks a lot for that last one. Good, one last shot. Why not? Parting shot. No, I appreciate it, Mike. I appreciate
it's not a shot. It's not a shot.
It's reality. It's reality, baby.
That's why I said buy a billboard that says "Show me." When they can show someone something, then it's a cheap shot. Till then, it's just the truth.
It's the cycle of violence, man. It never stops, man. It's the cycle of abuse, as they say. You get beat up, you apologize for it, you buy them something, you say it'll never happen again until you get into the next argument, and then it just happens all over again. Meanwhile, Browns fans can never take off their sunglasses because they've always got a big black eye. All right, Mike, have a good one. Let's catch up next week. Talk some spring training, baby.
Sounds good.
You got it. Mike Brandenburry, you guys check him out. DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. It's a big long one. I feel like I'm phonetically spelling that out for you guys. DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. If you haven't bookmarked it, make sure you do. It is your place to go for all things Cleveland Indians, not just up top, but down on the farm as well. And fantastic off-season stuff, articles every day, fresh content for you, and great things throughout the season as well. Did the Tribe win last night.com. Mike Brandenburry on the road, found a few minutes for us. Definitely appreciate that. Coming up here in just a moment, we're going to get Doug Plagens in the house and catch up with him in the latest week that was in Lake Erie Monsters hockey. But again, make sure you not only bookmark it, but a couple of great articles this week as I'm looking across DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Some great stuff about the pitch clocks that are coming, which we'll talk more about, man. I don't know. To me, I don't know about speeding up the game that way, but maybe it'll make it faster. But some great stuff about that because minor league baseball will be experimenting with those this year. And they always do some good pieces catching up with some of your favorite Indians of the past. Chris Bando, I remember him from my childhood days, catching up with Chris Bando here. A lot of stuff like that here. Brian Anderson was a feature last week. They've done their series all season long as well about the 1920 World Series Indians. All right, guys, DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Bookmark it. We are the Sports Fix. I'm J-Rocc. Let's take a break. When we come back, Doug Plagens, voice of the Lake Erie Monsters, joins us here on the Sports Fix. We'll talk some Monsters hockey and more when we come back with Doug Plagens next here on The Fix.
The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Back in 1990, when I joined Herb in the booth, you could say that first game was when I became a lifelong Tribe fan. Something about Cleveland made us want to stay and call it our home, raise our family here. I can promise you one thing, home or on the road, I feel what you folks feel, what you feel every game. Cleveland fans are passionate and pretty vocal. I respect that. This is our team. This is our town. This is a Tribe town.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys, listen up.
No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Feel like a monster.
The secret side of me, I never let you see. I keep it caged, but I can't control it. So stay away from me, the beast is ugly. I feel the rage and I just can't hold it.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, welcoming you back in as we roll on here. And Doug Plagens, the voice of your Lake Erie Monsters, getting ready to join us here momentarily on the hotline. We talked the latest week that was here in Monsters hockey action. A couple of exciting overtime games over the weekend for the Monsters. Doug's going to be with us here. As always, you guys, you can keep the conversation going. You can't get through on the phone, such as now when we've got Doug Plagens with us. And I know I've missed quite a few phone calls today's show. It's been one thing after another. So I'll open them back up here in the last segment of the show if anybody wants to try to get in. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. You can email us, The Sports Fix at AOL.com. Again, Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, The Sports Fix at AOL.com. I'm getting ready to go to the phones. I do believe we have got my man Doug Plagens ready to rock and roll. So let's do it. From the Lake Erie Monsters, your voice of the Monsters, Doug Plagens, with us here live on the Sports Fix. Doug, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing great. How are you?
Hey, I'm fantastic. Glad to have you here again. It's been an exciting week in Monsters hockey action, especially if you like to get more than your money's worth out of the Monsters here since the last time you and I talked.
Yeah, they've been to overtime their last 4 games, 5 out of the last 6 games. It was a huge weekend for the Monsters, winning 2 out of those 3 games and taking 5 out of the 6 points against the Oklahoma City Barons and the Milwaukee Admirals, who are 2 of the hottest teams in the entire American Hockey League. Oklahoma City sits atop the league, and Milwaukee went into that game on Tuesday night having won 10 out of their last 11 games. So those were some tough tasks for the Monsters, and you got to hand it to them. They did it a couple of different ways. Calvin Pickard was spectacular in the net. Ben Street has been fantastic up front for the Monsters, really just makes everyone better on the ice, and it's great to have a guy like that. And he was, whether it was because he was injured or because he was with the Colorado Avalanche, hasn't spent a ton of time with the Monsters this season, so there are probably a lot of fans still getting to familiarize themselves with him a little bit. But for the Monsters to go and take 5 out of 6 against 2 tough teams on the road, no less, that's huge, and really sets the table for a big weekend at the Q with Toronto Friday and Hamilton Saturday coming in, and those are teams right around the Monsters in the standings.
For sure. When you and I talked last week, we set the stage for that trip, and looking at what a way to start it here with Oklahoma City, #1 team in the conference, and a great back-to-back performance there. I mean, like you said, taking 3 out of the 4 available points there. Start there. Talk to me about those 2 games specifically. The energy the Monsters brought, jumped out to a big lead, unfortunately, gave it back there in the first one, but those 2 games really set the tone there, as you said, and a great way to come out firing against the top team in the conference.
No, the Monsters don't panic, and it's a good thing, because after that first game, there could have been, you could have been maybe a little worried going into the next one, because that first game, it's the first game after the All-Star break. You never know how those are going to go, and the Monsters were the team that jumped off to a 3-0 lead, and they led 3-0 after 1, 3-1 after 2. So you're thinking the Monsters are in the driver's seat in that game. Oklahoma City going into that game, I remember saying it on the air after the first period. The Barons had scored 140 goals this season. Until the final horn sounds, you're not out of the woods with them. And that was when the Monsters were up 3-0. And wouldn't you know it, the Barons ended up clawing back, tying the thing in the last minute, 3-3, and then you went to overtime, and Oklahoma City won the game 4-3. So that was a tough one for the Monsters to take. You still got the point to start off the road trip, but you would have liked to have had 2, especially having a 3-0 lead. But the next night, to bounce back and pick up the overtime victory in the most improbable of ways, a penalty shot with no time left. You don't really have true walk-offs like that so much in hockey, but for that one right there, no time left on the clock, and Ben Street ended up with an opportunity with a penalty shot, and he buried it upstairs, and the Monsters ended up winning the game by a 2-1 score. Calvin Pickard stopped 43 shots in that game, which is a single-game season high for a Monsters goaltender. Then they faced some travel complications, had flight cancellation, and ended up having to stay in Oklahoma City a little longer than initially planned due to the weather up here and in the Midwest. But eventually they made it to Milwaukee and ended up having a big showing against the Admirals, winning that game in overtime as well on Tuesday. So it was a big, or in a shootout rather, I should say, on Tuesday. So it was a big stretch for the Monsters, and to be able to do that against some good teams really makes a statement.
The way they won that game in overtime against the Barons there, I'm just curious. You've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of hockey, way more than I have in your time there with the different leagues, man. How many times do you see games end like that in your time?
Well, you don't see the penalty shot in overtime all that much, and what's really odd is this season the Monsters have actually won and lost a game on a penalty shot in overtime. So, I'd be interested to know how many teams in AHL history have had that happen, where they've won and lost a game in one season on a penalty shot in overtime. Monsters have done that in the span of a month, and or less than a month, 2 times in the month of January. With the penalty shot with no time left in overtime. So what happened was the referee's arm went up. The penalty was signaled with a few seconds left. The few seconds ticked away, so zeros were on the clock, and the referee points to center ice. There was a penalty shot. Immediately after that game ended, I emailed the folks at the AHL and the communications department and asked if this has ever happened. I said, the Monsters just won on a penalty shot goal with no time left. Has this happened? And they were able to confirm at that moment on short notice, not since at least 1992. So we're still trying to go further back in the archives, but that shows you just how infrequent that occurrence is, that right immediately after the game, probably 5 minutes after I went off the air that night, I had confirmation that it hadn't happened since at least 1992. So you're talking at least a couple of decades plus for that event, Ben Street scoring a penalty shot goal in overtime with all zeros on the clock.
I literally wrote down a couple days ago that note. Has that ever happened before? Have to ask Doug. And boom, I knew that you would go, and you already had an answer for that, but that'll show you. I knew if anybody knew, it would be you. And so, yeah, they ride that 5 out of 6 points on that 3-game road trip. Back home now, Monsters right in the thick of things now, as they're just a couple of points with 3 points back from the final playoff spot there. They're right there in the hunt here, and that's exactly the way you wanted to start this second half coming out of the break.
Yeah, you got to pick up points any way you can, and they started it before the All-Star break with those games against San Antonio, and they've continued it now after the All-Star break. The Monsters in their last 9 games have just 1 regulation loss. So what that tells you, that in 8 of their last 9 games, the Monsters are picking up points, and they've got points in 6 straight games. And this is the stage of the year where if you're picking up the points, you're at least staying with the pack. You want to make sure that you at least stay right there. It's when you start losing games in regulation that you lose ground. And there are so many teams in that mix right now. When you got the Monsters, Toronto right in the rear view, Hamilton in front of them, Texas in front of them, Chicago's not far away. All these teams are in that one grouping there, and you want to stay with them or try to jump them. And the Monsters are going to have to jump a couple of those teams if they want to get back into the top 8. But right now, because the Monsters have games in hand on a lot of teams in the conference, you have to like where the Monsters are, where they're situated in the standings at this point, especially coming off a weekend like they just had. And like I said, picking up the points the way they have been, 8 of the last 9 games, at least coming away with 1 point. That's what you have to do right now, and that's what's got to continue. And this has to be a trend from now through the end of the year, more so than just a little run. You got to get on a run, but the Monsters need to keep playing winning hockey to get themselves back into that top 8, back into that playoff picture. And it's funny to think we're coming up, but it's not going to be long from now. We're going to be hitting the 50 games played mark, and these things are going to start going quick. It's going to turn into a sprint to the finish.
For sure. And as we sit here and look just at the next 4 games here coming up at home, I mean, the Monsters are right in the middle. They get a chance to kind of hit the standings from both sides because, as you said, you've got a team in front of them in Hamilton. You've got a couple of teams as well directly behind them where they can get some space between those teams as well as continue to cut away at that deficit there, trying to get back in the 8th seed there. You've got Toronto and Hamilton. They're the next 2 this coming Friday and Saturday at the Q, 7:30 puck drop on Friday night, 7 p.m. For Hamilton on Saturday. Looking ahead to those, Monsters would love to come away with a couple of victories. Haven't been home in about a week and a half here, so be good to get back in front of that home crowd and as we said, a couple of chances here from different aspects of the standings to do some damage.
And a home-heavy schedule. The Monsters are playing 12 of the next 14 games, I believe, on home ice. The only 2 road games, the 15th and 17th of February out in Milwaukee, was the only 2 road games in that stretch. So, the Monsters have a nice little run going right now, and now with such a home-heavy February and early part of March on the way, it's a big time for the Monsters to really solidify themselves in that upper tier of teams in the Western Conference if they can keep picking up the points at this rate. And what the other thing that made this weekend so impressive, going into the weekend, obviously you had to be a little bit worried because Max Noro out with an upper body injury, so they didn't have him. He's leading the Monsters in points from back on the blue line. Stephen Elliott called up the National Hockey League. He was the Monsters All-Star representative and is still tied for the Monsters team leading goals with 12. So you lose your top 2 point guys and 2 of your best defensemen at the same time, and then Duncan Siemens, a first-round pick a few years ago, he's been out with an injury lately. So that's 3 guys off your blue line that were injured going into the weekend. The Monsters brought in a couple of guys from the ECHL to patch things up, and as the old saying goes, when some guys are out of the lineup, it creates opportunities for other guys, and those guys stepped up and they picked up the slack nicely. So, like I said, going into the weekend, obviously some questions with some key players out. The Monsters were able to balance that out, fill the void, and come away with the point.
And now they're set up here, as you say, and that's always great to see, man. When people, it's easy to say next man up, but when the next man up is able to do his job, it's a lot easier to look back and go, hey, the next guy took advantage of his opportunity. You've got Toronto and Hamilton. They're the two coming up this weekend. I know that Saturday night, it's Cleveland Cavaliers night, and there's going to be a bobblehead giveaway. All right, Doug Plagens, how do I get me one of these Tristan Thompson bobbleheads, man? I got to get Tristan Thompson in the Monsters jersey here, man. But it's Cavaliers night on Saturday night?
Yes, sir. Cavaliers night Saturday, 7 o'clock, Monsters in Hamilton. So a big game on the ice. Monsters will be wearing specialty jerseys that'll be auctioned off. And, of course, that goes to charity. And then there's going to be a Tristan Thompson hockey bobblehead given away at the game. See. And so we'll see what we can do about pulling some extras.
Thank you. I'm out of town. I can't even come to the game, but that's a nifty looking one. It's the and those are the jerseys.
If you were here, I would have figured that would have been one you probably would have tried to get down to.
Absolutely. No, I'm actually wrestling up in Erie this weekend. I'm out of town this weekend, but I'm looking at that. Is that the jerseys the Monsters are going to wear? The Cavaliers themed yellow and red.
Yep, the Cavs colors with Monsters
wine,
across the front.
Me. I said yellow and red. People are going to yell at me. It's not Hulk Hogan. It's wine and gold, obviously. But anyways, yeah, that's an interesting one. And then what is there's also Friday night, too. What is Friday night? Real Heroes Night?
Yes, Friday night is to, just pay tribute to everybody who's a real hero out there, anybody with a military background, police, fire, medical personnel, everything like that. So it's a night to acknowledge those folks for the good work that they all do, keeping us safe and healthy and protected out there in our everyday lives. So that's 7:30 on Friday night, Monsters in Toronto, and can't downplay that one either. It'll be a big game on the ice between the Monsters and Toronto. It's one of those games where the Marlies come in a little bit behind the Monsters. If the Monsters were to slip in that one and fall in regulation, they'd essentially be neck and neck. If the Monsters can win that game in regulation, you kind of kick the Marlies aside here for a little bit and make things tough on them. So it's a big game. There's a lot on the line in this one, and it's not just your typical Friday night in February. Those two teams both have a lot at stake.
And it's also Dollar Dog, Dollar Soda night, the usual Friday
as always.
Deal. They need to make a Real Heroes bobblehead. See, man, I don't know who you would pick to.
Well, we did have a couple of years ago. If you remember, we had the variation Sully the mascot bobbleheads, and when you walked in, you either got Sully in the police uniform or Sully in the fireman uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go, man. We need to revisit
that. We did have that a couple of years ago, and it went over very well.
So this is a good weekend coming up here. Real Heroes Night, Dollar Dogs, Dollar Sodas, all the fun post-game skate on Friday. You've got the Cavaliers theme night and the Tristan Thompson bobbleheads on Saturday. I think I said that backwards. Friday, Saturday, whatever. Double dose of Monsters hockey coming up this weekend at the Q. Doug's going to call all the action for you guys, as always. And looking forward to catching up with you next week. Hopefully they can put a couple victories behind them here, continue to pile up the points here, and make our job a lot more fun heading down the stretch.
Exactly, and we're, as always, both games on radio, but we're also on television on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah.
7 o'clock on My 43.
My 43 here locally. You guys make sure you check that out as well. Doug, thank you as always for taking some time out of your week to talk to us. I look forward to doing the Monsters hockey thing with you again next week.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks very much.
You got it. Thanks for being here. As always, Doug Plagens, the voice of the Lake Erie Monsters on radio and television. As he said, one of those TV opportunities coming up for you guys who don't get a chance to see them very often. Locally here, or perhaps if you stream it and you live somewhere else. So many of you guys do that I just take for granted that really the majority of our audience is outside of the Cleveland viewing area. But you get a chance to see Doug call the action on the television screen as well. Good stuff, Doug. Thank you so much. As always, get down there. Those Tristan Thompson bobbleheads are pretty cool. I'm looking at it now. The Monsters-themed Tristan Thompson bobblehead. Matter of fact, speaking of Tristan, I have bad luck with Tristan Thompson bobbleheads. I mean, I've got some boxed up ones, but my mascot here, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. He's sitting here. He's still alive, barely. This is broken Tristan Thompson. We've had a tradition with the Sports Fix. We had a broken Mo Williams back in the day at WHK, and it slowly, one part after another, broke. We didn't even know how. It was just one thing would break. He lost the arm, then he lost another arm. one leg came off. He was one-legged Pete. Well, then one day Mo's head got knocked off. So Mo's head became like, it was all that was left. It was Mo's head. Broken Mo. I took that head with me. Broken Mo came back to the new studio with me when I left there. But anyways, Tristan Thompson bobblehead. One of the extras that I had ended up being a desktop bobblehead here over by the studio where we broadcast. He's also, I don't know how this happens, man. He just little by little, he drops and one arm is broke off at the wrist. One is gone completely at the shoulder. Both legs have broken. He's got one leg taped on. He's a broken shell of a man, but he will not die. I love my broken bobblehead Tristan Thompson. It's a metaphor for the sports fix. This man can be knocked down. You can rip his arm off. You can cut off his legs, but he will not die. Anyway, so I don't know why I just told you that, but I'm going to replace him eventually with this hockey Tristan. It's pretty nifty here. And those jerseys are cool. Good to see the Monsters. Cleveland Cavaliers night, Saturday night. Go check it out if you can. I can't. I'll be out of town wrestling, but I'll be there in spirit, guys. All right, final segment. Let's get the last break out of the way. Check it out. Check right back in. Set the stage. Cavaliers are back at the Q tonight. A big one, a good one. Clippers, that clip show coming to town. We'll talk about that. Talk about we talked a little bit earlier about the college hoops in the area. Silva says he did not cheat. I'm going to talk about that. Failed drug test for the UFC. Set the stage for the Cavs and more. Final segment of the Sports Fix, baby. It is coming your way next. Don't go anywhere. It's just beneath the skin. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I'm gonna lose control. It's something radical. I must confess that I feel like a monster. I feel like a monster. I feel like a monster.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
Throwing you the best sports commentary in town. The Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out fantasyjocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
At the X's and O's of family entertainment. Every parent in Ohio knows the importance of being able to draw up an activity that'll get you out of the house for a couple of hours. But it needs to be affordable. It needs to be family friendly. Above all, it needs to be fun. Now, let's talk about high school sports. Bang for your buck, school sports provide the perfect game plan for your family. You'll enjoy all of the drama and excitement competitive sports offer. You'll be supporting the future leaders of our community in a meaningful way. Best of all, you can take the entire family without breaking the bank. Heck, you won't even dent it. Now, enough chalk talk. Let's get out there and see what's playing at the high school in your community. School sports. Good for our kids, good for our community. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
This is Josh Tomlin of the Cleveland Indians, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, final segment of the show. Caught some calls during the show that we weren't able to take, so let's go to the hotline. Caller, you're up on the Sports Fix.
J-Rocc, what a evil web we weave when we try to deceive. Ray Farmer, if nothing else, should be suspended for what he's done. The 2 first-round draft picks were busts, barely making it off the bench. Signing Ben Tate, another bust. Why would he think he's more knowledgeable than Mike Shanahan, texting plays and who to play from the media box office or whatever, wherever the hell that it was pigeonholed up at? Between Johnny Manziel being in rehab, Josh Gordon, who should be in rehab, gone for another year, Hoyer and Cameron bolting, begging to get the hell out of town. You got a joker who is the wide receivers coach. You have an offensive coordinator who's never called to play in his NFL life. Who the hell would want to come here? This is the most dysfunctional team since the Oakland Raiders. They make Oakland Raiders look like a well-oiled machine. Who the hell would want to come here to this debacle? And you have the owner, Haslam, who is being watched for doing shady dealings at best. Yeah, I'd want to sign on for this. Over and out.
Hey, man, I can appreciate where the mayor's coming from. Him and I don't always agree on everything, but I mean, hey, that's where the fans are at. Let's see if we got another one here. I can't tell if this is a message or not. Let's go to the hotline here. Caller, you're next.
Big Daddy J-Rocc. This is Big Bob from Bristol, Connecticut, baby. How's everything going out there in my second home, baby, Cleveland? And as far as Josh Gordon, we drafted the young man. Let's fix him up. I know he's got a year off. He's still going to be a wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. Let's just not get rid of these fellas that we draft. I mean, we have to do homework on them. We know what we draft. We know what we get. So he needs help. Let's fix him up again. He's still young. And as for Johnny Manziel, let's stop calling him Johnny. John Manziel. He's not a 6 or 7 year old playing with a Nerf football anymore. We drafted him. First round, 26 pick. Let's keep him. Let's work with him. Let's get him under the tutelage of good old Bernie Kosar, one of the smartest QBs that the Cleveland Browns has ever had. Besides good old Otto Graham and Dr. Frank Ryan, we've had some unbelievable smart quarterbacks. So let's get Bernie in the fold as a quarterback coach and possibly in a year or two as an offensive coordinator if we stumble with the offense this year and next year. Okay, but let's keep these young people. Let's get them going. And as far as Brian Hoyer, let's sign him up. He did a pretty good job for us in 2014. He deserves a shot. And John Manziel, deserves a shot to take him on, to beat him out as the starter. Okay, let's go. Let's go Cleveland Browns. And about 2.5, 3 weeks before spring training, love you guys. Love the Sports Fix. Signing off from Bristol, Connecticut. And hey, by the way, I want Ray Farmer's job. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys for the calls, Big Bob. Thanks to the mayor before that. That's what I mean when I tell you guys, the hotline is always open. If you can't get through live, leave us your take on the hotline, and I'll play it when I get the next opportunity. 216-539-7535 is always the number to call, 24 hours a day. 216-539-7535. Let me know if you're listening to the show and it's 4:17 a.m. Eastern Time. Guess what? You are still live on the Sports Fix. Well, almost live, but you know what I mean. You can pick up the phone and give us a call, 216-539-7535. Thanks, you guys, on that. I appreciate the phone calls, and I appreciate today's show. I appreciate John McMullen from the Sports Network for kicking things off. All the phone calls today, Larry and Bob and Vic and Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com joined us, as did our previous guest, Doug Plagens. A great show, loaded show here today. Loaded Friday coming your way as well. We've got a lot of things on tap for tomorrow's episode of the show to wrap up the week. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire. Yeah, can't wait to hear what JK has got to say about the latest week of ridiculousness here. He should be entertaining, to say the well, maybe not. It may be quite depressing, but it may be depressingly entertaining when Jonathan Knight joins us tomorrow. Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com will be in the house. We'll talk a little Super Bowl with him. Talk some more about all of this stuff with Jeff Gorman tomorrow. Also, let's talk about something good, like, the Cavaliers. Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland. He'll be with us tomorrow talking Cavaliers hoops. Hopefully, we'll be putting to bed a victory for the Cavaliers over the Los Angeles Clippers. That one is on tap here tonight for the Cavs at the Q. Eddie Jansen in the house tomorrow talking about that. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the game tonight as a challenge, most definitely, on this one. And I'll tell you, I was looking ahead at the schedule, the 5 games left until the All-Star break here, and you've got a couple of teams here now, 3 of the 5, that you've already beaten once during this current 11-game winning streak that the Cavaliers are on. That's a tricky, I have some people say, hey, J-Rocc, you think they can run this thing to the All-Star break? I'm not saying that they can't, but that's tricky to beat teams multiple times along the way like that, including a couple of them are tough teams. You'll have to have beaten the Clippers twice, because the Clippers were the second team that the Cavaliers beat when they started this run. Remember, they swept the Lakers and the Clippers in Los Angeles to start this winning streak. So you will have had to have beaten the Clippers twice here within 12 games, but you'll have to do the same thing with the Lakers and the Bulls as well. But a couple of good challenges here in this last stretch of games. You got Miami, you've got Chicago, you've got the Clippers, all very good challenges for the Cavaliers, as well Indiana and the Lakers in that mix as well. A couple of teams that you should beat. So we'll see how they can finish this stretch out. But you've got the Clippers back at the Q tonight. It's an 8 p.m. tip-off. Should be a whole lot of fun in this one. You've got 2 of the best teams in the NBA. Cavaliers, currently the hottest team in the NBA now that Atlanta's streak was stopped. Cavs looking to run it to a dirty dozen here. They're 30-20, 18-9 at the house based on a lot of this win streak here. Clippers 33-16, and they're a very respectable 13-9 on the road tonight. Man, it should be a good one, as you've got, last time these two teams played, though, no defense was played. If you remember, it was at the beginning of this streak that the Cavs are on, and that game, what did they give up, 121? Wasn't it 121, the final score in that previous game between these teams? I'll pull it up here in just a second, but no defense was played. Yeah, 126-121 was the final score. I knew I had that right. And no defense was played on either side in that last one here, where Kyrie had 37, LeBron had 32, 11 boards, and 7 assists, just missed the triple-double. And remember, Kevin Love missed that game when the Cavaliers beat the Clips back in the middle part of January. Blake Griffin had 34 and 10. He had a big double-double in that one for the Clips. And Clippers are currently on an 8-game road trip here. They're 2-2. Last game they played, they lost 102-100. Close one there to Brooklyn. Chris Paul led the way for them that night. 20 points, 8 boards, 8 assists. DeAndre Jordan, 22 points and 20 rebounds. A big one there for big DeAndre Jordan in the center for the Clips in that loss. They got a lot of challenges that they bring to the pace here. J.J. Redick won't play tonight. He's out, injured for the Clippers. Should be a lot of fun. Cleveland's coming in healthy tonight. No major injuries here. Kevin Love, we know, continuing to struggle, adapting himself in, but again, I have no problem taking 16.9 points, 11 rebounds a game for the rest of the season. I'll take that all day long, smile with it, and we can start talking money later because that has nothing to do with any of this here. I got a kick too. You guys, all the headlines was LeBron will go on bench if needed by the Cavs, but I like the point that he was making there as far as that's got to be the mindset for these guys day in and day out, and that's Kevin Love as well. And I think part of that was not speaking to him in a bad way through the media, but that's the mindset, and I think that's what Kevin Love has adapted here. Some people are looking at it like he's settling for less. I look at it like you have to. I think you have to settle in to your role. When you're making runs like what these teams are doing, that's where championship teams focus. Everybody puts their individual stuff aside until the summer. Then, come summertime, everybody can get selfish as hell, but the teams that can get 8 to 10 players to put aside that stuff for the remainder of the regular season are the ones that have a chance to make a run. Man, by the way, I saw that Golden State game, and I noticed during the news break today, you guys, I don't know if you heard it, but, Kerr is the coach and Steph Curry is the player, but he's the one that had 51 points. I noticed in the news break they said Steve Kerr had the 50-point game, but anyway, Steve Kerr wishes he could still have the 50-point game, but I was watching some of that, and that's where I'm projecting ahead, looking at the Cavs. I wish we played the Western Conference teams more, because I'd love to see, as this Cavs team is developing into what they are, how they match up in the 7-game series, which you'll only be able to find out in the finals against so many of those Western Conference teams. When I look at the East, again, in a 7-game series, Atlanta doesn't scare me. In a 7-game series, I couldn't see Atlanta winning more than 2 at best in a series with the Cavs. The Bulls, that's the team I see being deep enough, big enough, tall enough, long enough, and experienced enough to beat the Cavs in a 7-game series. A couple of the other teams could give them some runs, win a couple of games, but it's the Bulls in the East. But the West, when I play that same game out there, I'm looking, I could go 4, 5, 6 teams where I go, boy, I'd love to see this matchup as well. Could you imagine a playoff series with the with the Clippers and the Cavs, the way these two teams go at it, or with Golden State? I mean, obviously San Antonio's intriguing to people, Oklahoma City, so on and so forth. All of those squads over there, tough squads. Portland, different matchups in a 7-game series would worry me more than others, but man, Golden State they keep going. They're just going to score and score and score some more. I tell you, I could see them trying to run and shoot the Cavs out of the gym in a 7-game series, but that would just be, I think, a hell of a lot of fun to watch, man, projecting ahead. I wish the East played more games against the West because, nothing against the East, man, but it's just a different level, man, and I'm really more judging the Cavs against how they play against the best teams, and the way it breaks down, 80 of the top half of the league, 80% of the best are over in the Western Conference. The Cavaliers, the Bulls, the Hawks based off their record. Even though, again, I don't have them. I don't have the Hawks as good as their record is. But regardless, there's a couple. Washington, there's a couple good to decent teams, of 1 or 2 really, really good teams. But over in the West, you're 8 deep with good teams, and then a couple more underneath that are still good, and it's deep over there, man. So here's another good test. The Clip Show here, 8 p.m. tonight. Second final regular season game for these two teams as they play each other twice here in the last 12 games, and that's it. So the next time you'll see the Clippers would be if these teams met in the NBA Finals. And, again, that's one of those matchups I project to. But that's way ahead. Tonight, Clips come in. They're scoring nearly 107 points a game, giving up less than 100. Cavaliers at $102 a game, giving up as well the same 99 points a game. Cavs come in 11 in a row. Can they make it 12? Clippers looking to snap a small 1-game losing streak and looking to snap the Cavaliers streak as well. Can't wait to talk about that tomorrow with Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland. As we said, should be a lot of fun. Looking ahead to, some other stuff we'll get into tomorrow. But one last thing, I mentioned it yesterday a little bit. I talked earlier this week. You guys know we were talking about some UFC and all that. Didn't even get into it, but Vince McKee, who does some great stuff now covering MMA for the Inscriber, was on top of it the other day. The failure of both main eventers from the UFC pay-per-view the other day, Anderson Silva and Diaz, both failed their drug tests for various. The Diaz brothers, marijuana's their thing. They're legal card-carrying medicinal marijuana guys. They fight with the commission after every fight. They believe it should. Anyways, they give up half of their money to the commission most of the time because they know they're going to be fined. That's a different failure. But Anderson Silva, you guys remember, he snapped his leg. It was one of the nastiest sports injuries you'll ever see. Just destroyed it. Remember a year plus ago? And worked his way back. This was the big comeback for one of the legends of MMA, and the Spider came out, Anderson Silva, and there were some big fights on the horizon here based on a big comeback. Last thing you want to see is have that story tainted with not one but two reported failures for different steroids in his drug test. However, Anderson Silva yesterday spoke. He didn't run from this. He came right out and absolutely denied this. Hey, so did Lance Armstrong for a long time, by the way. Just because somebody denies it doesn't mean anything. But the thing that gets me is Anderson Silva is one of the fighters that has been so loud about drug testing and wanting more drug testing and stronger drug testing. He wanted more out of competition, which is where you really catch guys. When you test them out of competition, they're not expecting it. They're always expecting it come fight time. And that's what got Silva, was an out of competition test. And that one's kind of, you hate to see that, but, a guy being so outspoken against it, it's almost ironic that then he ends up failing a test for steroids. So he denies it. He has asked for the B sample to be tested. They always split the urine samples into A and B. He's asked that the B sample be tested. So, reserve judgment on just completely coming out after that. But that would be nuts. Again, it's a guy that it would be like if, one of the guys like Bonds or McGuire, one of the guys that's all red letter steroid guys in baseball, if they had spent their whole career saying, test me every day, and then, this was a guy that wants more and more and more testing, and it would be a shame to find out that turned out he was a hypocrite all along. We'll see. He said there was a mistake, a contamination in the laboratory. He's asked for the test to be retested. Excuse me there. Had to block that one, man. My throat was going on me on that one, man. Big sneeze out of nowhere. Anyways, we'll see what happens. Silva did defeat Diaz the other day, Nick Diaz of the famed Diaz brothers in that fight. But now all bets are off on that one, and we'll talk more about it. Nevada Commission's going to meet in a couple of weeks here. That's the third, by the way, marijuana failure for Diaz. Like I said, those guys, they don't care. They hope not to get fined, but they believe that they should be able to, and it is what it is. Yep, that maybe he was just hanging out with them secondhand people that Josh Gordon was hanging out with. But, no, you got to understand with them, they live, this is California, Nevada, medical marijuana states. I mean, the mindset is different legally out there, and what he's doing is legal. He makes the argument that he should be able to do it. The whole point is, if it's illegal in your sport, it doesn't matter that it's just like the NFL. Those guys that play for Seattle and Denver can't test dirty for pot. It doesn't matter that it's legal in your state. It doesn't matter. It's the rules of the sport. But the Diaz brothers give no cares. They just go, well, here's 30% of my purse. Go ahead and take it. I'm going to smoke a doobie before and after my fight, whether you like it or not. But the Silva one, that's a black eye for the sport for sure. So we'll see. He denies it. And as I said, that doesn't always mean anything. How long did Lance Armstrong say that? By the way, speaking of Lance Armstrong, did you guys see he did an interview last week? I was reading up on it just the other day and forgot to mention it on the show. It just popped in my head now that I said the name Lance Armstrong. He admitted that he'd do all the same PED use all over again. He said, I know it was wrong. I know that, and I wish I wouldn't have had to do it. And if the playing field was level, I would have never cheated. I would have loved to have been able to compete clear. But knowing how dirty the sport was, I absolutely could tell you that I would have probably made all the same decisions, and I would have still cheated again because everybody else was cheating, and it was the only way. And he went on to explain it was the difference between competing at a high level or having to go back and get a factory job back in Plano, Texas, and all that other stuff. And you know what I say? I say that's the reality for every high school and college superstar that doesn't have the talent to make it to the next level. That's called reality. They reach the point where their talent cannot get them any further, cannot take them to the next level, and then they have to go back to Plano, Texas, and get a job in the factory or get a job at the real estate office or whatever they want to do. Go be a doctor, lawyer, nurse, whatever it is. That's called life. Every high school and college superstar, guys that scored 40 points a night in high school and then went to college and scored 30 points a night and don't have the game for the NBA, guess what? 2 years later, they're not athletes anymore. They have a job. But it was just funny to hear him say that because the first thing that popped in my head is that's life for everybody else. He said, I reached a point, the sport was so bad that my choice would be to cheat, to compete, or to not compete and to go get a job and have my career be over. If your natural talent is not enough to compete, you can say everybody else is juiced up and that's why you're not good enough. Okay, whatever. But it was just such a juxtaposition from real life because when your talent is not enough, that statement, well, it was either that or I have to go back and get a real job. That's life for the majority of people once their athletic career ends. But whatever, they don't see it that way. It is what it is. Lance Armstrong, man, and but I got a kick out of it. They said I'd do it again, no doubt. Yeah. What do you expect? That guy was nasty, by the way. When you look at the way he shook down, sued, ran financial games, because when you sue people, I mean, and they have to pay for those lawyers to defend, just running up, putting people into debt. He bankrupted and just corralled into the ground everybody that accused him along the way. Man, he ruined a lot of good people. He ruined a lot of... And I have no love for Lance Armstrong at all because of that stuff. I can dig a cheater getting caught and apologize. Look, the world is built on redemption stories. I don't mean I can dig cheating. What I'm saying is the world is built on mistakes and redemption and second chances, and I believe in that stuff too, man. Everybody can redo things. You always can start from scratch and rebuild life, but that guy... He not only cheated, but then he buried and destroyed the good people along the way because they made the mistake of telling the world about Lance Armstrong's cheating. And he said, I'm going to bury you. Talk about life as a highway. I'm going to bury you under the highway and pave this thing right over. There's no room for that, man. No room for that. I can appreciate a guy. I could right now. I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't forgive him, and I would never put him in the record books. Right now, I wish Barry Bonds would say, I gave in to the pressure. I saw Mark McGwire, and I saw Sammy Sosa, and I saw these other guys, and I said, you know what? I'm better than all of them, so I'm going to get on that level, and I'm going to cheat. And I cheated, and I did it, and I'm sorry, but I would do it again because everybody else is cheating. I mean, at least admit it, but at the same time, you look at the nasty parts of what Lance Armstrong did. Think back. Go look it up. Go look at how many people he railroaded, ran into the ground, bankrupted because he had the money to do it. That's the problem. Sometimes when you take on the big ones, man, they got enough money that they don't have to win. They just have to beat you into the ground until you give up. And that's what he did to a lot of people. But, what I'm saying is I could forgive. I could go, hey, man, I dig it. Barry Bonds, I may even convince myself that I would have done the same thing. Doesn't mean I have to put you in my Hall of Fame, but I can go, hey, I dig it. Take him off the top of the list. But other than that, I dig it. A lot of people cheated, and you were one of them, too. You can move on from things and say, okay, it's cool. But people want the cake and they want to eat it too. They want to admit, forgive, and still get credit. Cats want to go, hey, yeah, I cheated, but I was still really good. Well, you no longer can prove that, and neither can I. I believe you were, but I can no longer prove at what point you stopped and they started, and they being the drugs. I don't know. You've blurred the line, and that's the mistake you made. Again, like I said, I'll forgive you for anything, but if you commit a felony at 21, you still can't be president at 55 unless you get that thing expunged. So, yeah, 34 years later, you'll still pay the price. Doesn't mean you weren't forgiven. Doesn't mean you didn't become a great person, but sometimes actions have consequences that don't get erased just because you said you're sorry. All right, I don't even know where that went, man. Sometimes I get preachy. Sorry about that, fellas. Let's call this one a day. Great show, you guys. Speaking of great shows, if you didn't get a chance, go back, listen to yesterday's show. Ernest Biner, the kudos, even during this show, kept coming in. It was a great interview. It was all EB. It was not me. So check that out. Go back to yesterday's show. Take a listen to it. Tomorrow, let's do it. Wrapping up the week with Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com, Eddie Jansen, Cavaliers beat writer for More Than a Fan Cleveland. Let's do it. Should be a wild ride. A Good Friday edition of the Sports Fix coming your way. Until then, enjoy tonight. Cavs and Clippers will be a great one. Come on back here tomorrow. Talk to us about it. Same bat time, same bat channel, baby. Live at noon across the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland, and beyond, wherever you're at. We'll see you tomorrow, live, right here on the Sports Fix, baby.
Shouts out to St. Clair, uptown, yes, y'all. Heading to the flex, get it popping up with Steph Law. Thurs State Monster, this the home of King James. We are not the Empire, but this is where the Kings play. Cleveland,
we rep our city. Blue lights separate the ground from the gritty. Red seat fitted, hood pass cover any city that we visit. Winnie up on Cleveland. Survivals are must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep. Out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland.
Okay, now here we go. Welcome to the Cleveland show, but this ain't no cartoon.